What's up, everybody? We're back with another episode of Let's Talk Snowboarding, presented by Mountain Vibes. And I have two of my day one homies from Mount Hood at Timberline Lodge. We got Karyssa and in the house. How's it going, guys?
Cohen.
We're good. We got
Nice.
married, so our last name's Cohen now.
Oh, it's Cohen now.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. So Carissa, your main name Stearns.
Yep.
All right, and now it's Carissa and David Cohen. That's my bad.
Yep. We're the Cohen family.
Yeah,
There we
became
go.
American.
Nice. So yeah, you guys, we were chatting a little bit before, we came on and started recording. You guys woke up not too long ago. You guys are rocking, night shift up at Timberline. Let's talk about that. So Carissa, you and I talked the other day. You've had a number of different jobs up at Timberline, but right now you're working front desk, and there was kind of a crazy event that happened the other night with a lady up in the lodge. Let's chat about the front desk.
Most nights are pretty chill. Every now and then there's a person that gets a little out of hand. A lady got arrested last week. So that was exciting. But yeah, never a dull night there. Never a dull night there. Just a
Yeah.
little too freaking disorderly around kids, which is never a good thing. So she got arrested.
David and David, what department are you working in now?
So I'm working facility maintenance. So I work on the actual Timberline hotel and the day lodge. Make sure it doesn't burn down or whatnot, and everything's working right or as good as
Yeah.
it can. As good as a
Nice.
almost 100-year-old lodge can run.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
then we work the same shift, so some of the times when there's issues with guests and stuff like that, I might get sent out to help
Mhm.
with that too.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. There was kind of a little bit of a fire that happened recently up at the lodge. Were you guys working that night?
No, we actually worked that day, came home that night, and we saw on just a
The
random
news
it
article.
was just oh god, it is on fire right now. But my coworker Daniel, who I work with, he was actually there for that fire, and he made it sound like honestly everybody did everything as good as they're supposed to. Timberline did a really good job at mitigating the fire and making sure that guests were taken out of the lodge in a safe manner. Everything was cool, and for the for what happened, the amount of damage to the inside of the hotel wasn't bad. I don't think very much of the artwork got damaged or anything like that.
None of the artwork was damaged, which I think was a big surprise to everybody. At the time, I was working with the curator, Lisa Riverslong, who also used to be a ski instructor with us. That was how we first met. And after the fire, the Forest Service actually had a private sort of award ceremony for lots of employees that helped out that night, and personally gave an award and a little speech to so many people that had worked that night, like Barb, who's another ski instructor that we all know. She carried adults piggyback style across the parking lot to the other building. I think she was in sandals and she was walking in snow and she did it. She got an award for that, and just the front desk's response and communication, everything went really smoothly because everyone had paid really good attention and training, and the teams worked together really well. And the Forest Service personally complimented Timberline on that. It was because of your team that this building didn't burn down. So I felt really proud to hear that about, one, the place I work at, and two, all these people that we work with every day. So it was a really, really special moment, I think, for Timberline to sort of appreciate the camaraderie and how we all try to work together.
Yeah.
The fire was really scary. We do not want to see our lodge burned down. It's a really special place to us, So I think we're grateful that nothing worse happened.
Yeah. And a little backstory, how I met David and Carissa was, like said, through ski school. gosh, long time ago, man, like 2013, 14 or something like that.
Yeah,
So
it's got to
almost
be
10.
10 years, around 10 years at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and like Karyssa was saying, like Timberline still to this day is like my favorite place I've ever stepped foot on. And it will be just the entire vibe at Timberline, and the beauty and the views and the lodge and just everybody that's up there. It's like, it's a big community, and you go down into Govy and it's the same thing. So it's really cool to hear and really cool to see. Like, I'll love Timberline forever, and hopefully one day we'll get to come back and get to ride again. So yeah, let's talk a little bit about your guys' story growing up. David, I'll go to you first, man. Like, where did you grow up? Where are you from? And how did you get into snowboarding? And take us into what that looked like as a kid.
So I grew up in Vancouver, Washington. My family moved up from California when I was about 3, I think. Moved to Vancouver when I was 4 and spent basically my entire childhood there. Um, as far as how I got into it, I had expressed interest in wanting to learn snowboarding, and on my very first Christmas, because I'm Jewish and my Japanese side of my family celebrates the gift giving side of Christmas. So it was my first time spending Christmas with my Japanese side of my family. And my uncle surprised me with a snowboard. So that was when I was 10 years old. I was really like, to this day is probably the best present I've ever received. And then, yeah, my mom was definitely not super stoked. Like she like bundled me up. She put like the most bowling ball helmet you've ever seen on a kid on me. It was pretty good. But from there, I got lessons at Mount Hood Meadows, which is the other resort on Mount Hood. And I ended up getting the same instructor for like, I think 4 years in a row, because it was like a school program where we get like, it was like a month of every week we go out and get instruction. And I got this really cool instructor named Dave O, and he's kind of the guy who inspired me to eventually instruct myself. So that's kind of my story as far as how I got started.
Nice. And let's hear, what was that first board that you got?
I think it was a liquid. I can't
Okay.
remember the brand. Like I don't think the brand exists anymore. All I remember
Definitely
was
not.
it was a red board with this weird looking guy with a giant alien head, and then he was holding an 8 ball. But that's it. My second board was a
Dude,
K2.
there you go. Okay. So
Yeah,
big step up, big step up.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
and as we all know, like, I'm guessing this is back in like, probably mid 90s or so, early mid 90s for you.
So that let's see.
1999.
So yeah, that would have been 1999.
Nice. Yeah. Right around the same time I started. I remember my first board was like a World Industries something with like Flame Boy on the base and stuff.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah, like
World
those,
Industries.
just like a big piece of shit.
Oh yeah.
So, but yeah, it was fun, dude. It was fun. All right, yeah. So Karyssa, where did you grow up, and how did you get into snowboarding?
Yeah, so I grew up in Beaverton and like Southeast Portland. My parents were split, so I was constantly like going back and forth. I didn't actually learn how to snowboard until I was 20. Uh, Dave and I had been dating for a little bit, and he was a snowboard instructor, and he was spending all his time up on this mountain. And I was like, well, I want to spend time with you, so I'll learn how to snowboard, I guess. And I think I went out like twice and decided to buy my own board after the second time, even though I couldn't really hold an edge, couldn't turn, couldn't do shit. But it didn't matter. I was having fun and I wanted to keep doing it. And at the time, I was having some just like confidence issues and just kind of needing to learn how to trust myself in certain ways. And when I bought my first snowboard, I actually bought it from Steve Muse, the director of the ski school we've all worked at and where we all met. And I remember he seemed like such an intimidating person and seemed like very macho and like I wasn't sure like if he'd be really encouraging of like a girl learning how to snowboard, you know. And when he handed me my snowboard that I purchased from him, he just had the biggest smile on his face, and he's just like, "Here you go have fun." And it just felt so welcoming, and that's I think what inspired me to continue learning how to snowboard and then to teach is I think Steve showed me that you don't have to like give into stereotypes to be a snowboarder. And I always kind of felt that pressure growing up a little bit, coming from just like being a girl. Um, and so I really have to credit the Timberline Ski School with making making me realize that snowboarding's a really inclusive thing, and it can just be whatever you want it to be for your own personal thing. So
Yeah.
that's kind of how I got into snowboarding and instructing.
Nice. And Beaverton, did you go Beaverton High School? Where was your school at?
I went to Sunset.
Okay.
Mhm.
Nice. Uh, Back before I was at ski school, I was a yellow coat up there, a ski host. So it was a good gig, but I was like, when I first got to actually meet Steve Muse, it was on my birthday one year. I went up to Shred, and because we had gotten snow, and all the canyons, little rivets in the canyons in the mile had like filled in really nice with powder, so they opened up the mile that day, and I was just like in awe and stuff. And Chelsea, my wife now, I called her because I went to in the YA Stay Lodge. What's the bar up top? I forget the name of it. Yeah, the Y bar. I was like, I'm gonna go get a beer, and then I get in, I walk in, and it's like a big job fair, you know. And so I'm like, oh, dude, maybe I should do something else. And so I called Chelsea. I'm like, should I like interview for some stuff? And she's like, fuck yeah, yeah. You get paid now to go up there. And I'm like, okay. So I think I interviewed with like Park Crew and Ski School, and Steve Muse sold it for me. I was like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna work for this guy, like, because he's just the ultimate badass, awesome dude I've ever met. One of the most cool guys I've ever met in my life, and like the biggest mentor now. So, and you guys can probably say the same thing. Like, he just
Hmm.
he just makes you feel good, and he always like shares his time with you, and always make sure that you feel welcome and you're part of his family, no matter what, even if you leave. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's awesome. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, so you said you guys met. Now was that like was that at the same time, like, cuz Karyssa, you and I, that like we were in the same like training group, so we were both like the same year actually getting into ski school. Was that when you met David, or was it a little bit before that?
I think it would have been like the year after, maybe. No,
No,
it would
a
have been
couple
the.
years before, because I didn't start working in the ski school till after I finished college.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, so Dave
Yeah.
and I met in 2014. We met at the World Naked Bike Ride. That's where we met.
Nice.
And that we met in the summer, and then that first winter we were dating was when I first went snowboarding. And then a couple years went by and I finished college. And then right after I finished college, I started working in the ski school part time. And then that's when you and I met. But that was really my first full season up there at Timberline. I'd spent like a half season pretty much every day, kind of learning on my own in the daytime. And then Dave would give me lessons at night on Bruno's when he was
Nice.
done instructing. And I just kind of loved how we were outside all day. He seemed to really love instructing. And so I decided to just kind of try out and give it a go. I couldn't even hold a toe side properly. Like, I was such a terrible rider. But just through learning how to break down all the small movements and then just riding with instructors constantly, like, improved my riding so much that first year. Honestly, that first year was a blast. Like, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a good crew. Good crew
Mm-hmm.
back then.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. Um All right, cool. So, talking about a little bit more about the ski school and just like Mount Hood, like I was saying, you guys have done a lot of different stuff up at Mount Hood, whether it be jobs. I remember you guys were living up at the Scummets for a while. Um, let's talk a little bit about like what Hood means to each of you. And David, I'll start with you. Like, what does Mount Hood like kind of mean to you as far as like what it has meant like in your life and the influence of Hood and snowboarding?
I think that Mount Hood means I mean, obviously a lot to me, basically I've been writing for, gosh, coming on 24 years now, and I've only ridden off of Mount Hood one time in all of those years, just a single time. So Mount Hood is basically everything to me, All of my writing has been there. I've based my career out here, and I don't know, like at this point, Mount Hood basically means almost everything to me, Like we got married at the Summits Lodge, right in Govy. That was
Yep.
really, really cool and special. Like most of the good memories that I have in my life come from Mount Hood. As far as snowboarding goes, yeah, I mean, it's not necessarily the most, I've heard, because I haven't really gotten to experience it, that it's not the most intense terrain, that there is out there. But I feel like Mount Hood's special in the variety of terrain that it can provide. And if you're willing to look and go find it, there's some really amazing runs out there.
Yeah. Yeah. And how about you, Karyssa?
For me, I think Mount Hood holds a really special place because it's been a spot where I've always been able to go to sort of figure myself out during whatever period of growth or change I'm going through in life. Mount Hood's been not just an escape or a place to kind of like forget about, my worldly troubles, but a place for me to kind of explore myself and learn how to grow through some of that adversity. And it feels like a supportive environment. But even just spiritually, there just feels something really special about mamahood. Like, my life has taken me on and off this mountain a few times. We've moved, come back again. And each time I leave, I keep thinking like, oh, it'll be, years before I come back to this mountain. But I always find myself coming back sooner than I thought. And it just kind of feels really hard to escape the gravity of the volcano. Like it just keeps bringing me back. And I'm realizing that it doesn't necessarily matter like what job or role I'm working up there. I think it's just being up there is what's important to me. And once I had that realization, I felt a lot happier in the type of work I was doing up there, and I felt more at peace, and I felt more like I had made my place up here. So to me, it feels like a place that's become my home, in addition to being my playground, which is pretty cool. You know, I like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I wanted to ask you guys, now there's a few bucket list items at Hood. There's going around it on the Timberline Trail. There is the solstice party and summiting. Now, I want to hear from you guys because I don't know. Have you guys checked any of those off your bucket list yet?
Actually,
No. We've been pretty
Okay.
bad. Yeah. I feel like these past few years of our life were very transitional, as far as like there was a lack of stability financially, and just like in our work roles and stuff like that, where we wanted to be. We left the mountain for a year to like go truck or attempt to do trucking school and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But
got frauded, so here we
yeah,
are.
so I
Yeah. When you
feel like
guys
we're
told me that, oof.
finally this year are finally at the point where we can start moving forward and up with our lives. So I'm actually looking forward to starting to plan some of these bucket list items, knowing that
Nice.
I'm going to be financially stable enough to actually do them, and maybe actually get the time off that it would be required to do that.
Solstice has
Yeah.
been a big bucket list item for me. I've never made it up. I've had friends go every year. And like this coming summer, I definitely want to make it happen just to say I did it. And it'd be really cool. I don't know. It seems fun. I just want to make it happen this year. So I'm feeling really
Yeah.
optimistic about this season.
Yeah. It's pretty epic. I mean, it is, there's a lot of people up there now, but it's still same vibes. And it's kind of cool to get to see those professionals hitting those big booters now in the middle of the
Dude,
summer. So
it's
yeah, it'd be a
crazy.
good show. Yeah,
Hmm.
go watch Sean Fitzsimons just huck a 1080 off that thing. It's just like, oh my gosh. Yeah,
That's
yeah,
crazy.
that's awesome. Yeah, definitely. You guys, so you said you left for trucking school. I remember that phase, and don't want to bring up a sore subject or anything like that, but
Oh no, it's not fun.
No.
Sorry, it's fine.
yeah, yeah. And so I wanted to ask you guys, I don't think I ever heard, did you guys actually, were you able to like get your CDLs through that, or did they just completely not get you a license?
No, so we basically got to the last step where we got done with schooling, and all we needed to do was take the CDL test. And 6 weeks after our 4 week class, we called Washington State's Department of Transportation and was like, hey, like, what's going on, And they basically told us that they had no record of us ever going to school.
That the school was closed to
Oh,
cease operations 6 months ago, and we had been there when they were supposed to be closed. Um, and even though the instruction they were giving was correct and they were good instructors, we really loved our instructors. Because the school wasn't certified, the instruction wasn't considered valid. And even if we took our test and passed it with the driver, the DMV would not consider that valid enough to get our actual license. So basically, we would have to go to school all over again. And we did get our tuition back. The state actually has a department for stuff like this, and they actually have a fund for tuition reimbursement when like you get frauded. So getting the tuition back took time, but it was fairly painless. And I really want to thank the lady. I think her name was Deborah, with the Washington Department of Transportation. She really helped us out. Like, could not have done it without her. She navigated everything for us, answered all our questions, sent us our checks. But we didn't get, the money back that we had saved up for living expenses. We were paying Cobra health insurance because I was having some health issues and needed insurance. Like, we didn't get any of that money back. And so even though we had the tuition, we decided like we still need to save up money before we can continue pursuing school again. And then we came back to Timberline. We're hoping to save up money. Last year was really rough. It was like our brokest year of existence ever. Like, I've never earned so little money before, but we're doing a lot better now. And we've talked about it. I think we've decided in Dave's future, I think he really wants to pursue trucking of some sort. And for me, I think if I ever feel like I no longer want to be at Timberline or work there, I think I'd probably join him as a team. Um, so I think it's definitely in the cards for the future, just not for right now.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's a great license to have. And as long it's just super easy to always keep up. Like, you just have to go in and renew. And especially like up here in Idaho,
Yeah.
I, I switched over mine really easily. All I had to do was take a driving test, just a
Oh, nice.
standard driving test. They switched it over. And now all I do is just go renew my license each year. Don't have to do anything really besides get the medical examiner certificate every couple years
yeah.
is always the thing you have to keep up on. So, but I'll always do it just because I always need drivers to haul stuff around, man.
Hmm.
It's
It's
pretty
a
fun.
really good thing to have. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's definitely well, at the time I worked, it was a good moneymaker and
Hmm.
it was a good gig and stuff. But everything comes in ebbs and flows. So I feel like there's like a saturation of drivers currently, and there's a lot of like, and so a lot of like the money has kind of gone down in the past like 3 years or so. So, but yeah, what are you gonna do about it?
Yeah.
But yeah, yeah. And then you during that time, when was it that you guys kind of dived into the whole windsurfing thing out in Hood River?
Okay, so that's a whole nother bag of worms.
COVID?
Uh, no, that was.
This is the year before COVID.
I think that was. It might have been the year. I think I was still glass blowing.
Yeah, you were.
So that
Oh,
would have
hey, that's a
been.
whole nother thing we can talk about.
Yeah. So I think that was around what 2017, 2018.
I think 2018, 2019.
So basically, I've been interested in wind sports since I was a little kid. The first time my family took me to Hood River. If you have never been to Hood River, if you go there during the summer on a windy day, the entire river is completely covered with wind sports enthusiasts. So you'll see windsurfers, wingers, kiters, just like it almost looks like a hot air, like a hot air balloon event, with like a
Yeah.
thousand like different like cool like pieces of fabric floating around in the wind. Yeah, it looks like that. So the moment I saw that, I was really interested in it. And my mom said, "Oh yeah, I have a friend and he has a board that he's trying to get rid of." 20 years later, you know what I mean? Still never gotten a windsurfing lesson. I'm getting the first haircut that I've gotten in 5 years. And my barber is mentioning that he's trying to get rid of his windsurfing gear. So I was like, shoot, I'll get by that off of you. It turned out to be like old garbage gear, like the equivalent of like, like the skis from the 80s that were like straight and basically unusable. You know what I mean? But I didn't know any better. And what happened was I basically saw this company called Big Winds that was teaching in the area that I was learning at. And I just, I decided to get a lesson because I was like, well, like I'm an instructor. I know how valuable instruction can be. Got a lesson, was up and moving around within like the first 2 hours, just having a blast. I was like, okay, this is like everything that I'm looking for. I've always been a fan of the water. My dad was really into sailboats and stuff like that growing up. So this was kind of combining like two things that I really like, board sports and wind sports, And then I taught the next season I ended up teaching for that same company. And that was the year that wing foiling was just coming out onto the market. So they're basically like, hey, there's this brand new sport. We're going to provide you all the gear that you're going to need, instruct you how to do it, and pay you how to learn how to do this new sport. That's like literally like what snowboarding was in the 90s. You know what I mean? Just like brand new. No one's done it before. So I was like, sure. Yeah, that sounds like fun. And when I got up on a hydrofoil for the first time, it was game over. Like, I really love snowboarding. It's still, one of my favorite things in the entire world. But after riding a hydrofoil, that's what I'm looking forward to every year.
Nice. And Karyssa, what you went out there too? How was your experience out there in Hood River and getting out on the river?
It was good. Kind of similar with the snowboarding. Dave was always off doing this crazy sport, so I was like, let me learn this sport so I can spend time with you and have fun doing it. I learned how to windsurf first. The foiling is a little intimidating to me. I'm not sure if it's like heights, because when the foil comes out of the water, you're kind of levitating in the air a little bit. And it, like, the sensation of not feeling contact or like that tension with the water or the ground almost feels like you're floating or levitating. And to me, that's a little weird. So I'm still getting used to that sensation and working my confidence up there. But I learned how to windsurf, and then I applied to work there for one summer, but actually ended up getting a job at Timberline managing the summer camps, like all the camps that come up and train in the summertime and use the freestyle training center and all that. And that was a much more lucrative job at the time, so I took that. But the last 2 summers, I've been instructing windsurfing full time for Big Winds as well. And that's been a blast. I love teaching windsurfing. I want to say almost more than I like teaching snowboarding.
Yeah.
Snowboarding's definitely my first love. With windsurfing, I think it's a little easier, or the progression's a little quicker to get students up and moving independently. And so that feels like a huge success, every time. But I think it's just kind of nice to be out in the water in the sun and play. And I think that's what I like about both sports, is it's a way to enjoy like the height of summer or the height of winter, like fully in whatever like weather conditions we're experiencing. And I really like being out in the sun. I also found out I'm allergic to the sun this year. So
Oh,
yeah, I wear a lot of sunscreen and
yeah.
gotta wear all the PPE for my skin, but I still love it. So I'm still
So
doing
is that just like what does that basically do like to your body when you get too much exposure? Is it just like
it.
a really bad burn or?
It's like a rash.
Yeah, it's a
Oh,
burn and a rash. Sometimes like the rash will just be like little red bumps that will stay for months. But this summer I started getting like inflamed sunburns, and that's when I was like, what's this? And I kind of looked it up and I was like, oh, this sounds like a sun allergy. And when I talked to my mom, she was like, oh, yeah, your grandma's allergic to the sun too. And I was like, why'd you never tell me this? Okay,
Oh,
good to know.
A good piece of information to have.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
it's okay. We're Irish, so it's to be expected, I guess.
yeah. Well, yeah, I have some Irish in me, and I don't know why I don't burn that much. I have Irish, Norwegian, and a tiny bit of Chickasaw Native American.
Oh, that's what it is.
Yeah.
I have one of my best friends, like the guy who I like. He was the guy who started the glass shop that I was working in, and for a long time it
Okay.
was just me and him. But I mean, he's a straight redhead, and he has a decent portion of native heritage, and he actually tans. Like he's the only redhead that we call him the day walker. You know?
He's a legit day walker.
Yeah,
Yeah.
man, dude, that's crazy. You mentioned, and so you mentioned the glass blowing. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about that because um, I'm gonna probably have to scour back through like your Instagram and social media, or if you ever want to send me some photos of some of your favorite pieces, I want to throw them up on the screen for this.
Yeah,
But
for sure.
these pieces that David did, yeah, they were just so insane, so sick. So like, where was that, and like, how did you start getting into that?
So the whole entire glass blowing started with me watching a movie that used to be on Netflix. It was called Degenerate Art: The Art and Culture of the Glass Pipe Movement. And basically it kind of talked about like how there was this change in trend from making a pipe just to smoke out of and making it a piece of art that you could smoke out of, you know. And it was kind of exploring how this glass or this pipe maker community was trying to branch out into the fine art, um yeah, into fine arts basically, you know. And it was really cool, super inspirational. I'd never seen glass like this before, you know, and never actually gotten to see some of the glass blowers. um so after I watched that movie, I was like, cool, I'm gonna do whatever it takes to learn how to blow glass. And like that same week, I was going into a head shop when the person who eventually taught me how to blow glass was walking out. And we had a mutual friend from high school. He actually works up at Mount Hood now, or at Timberline still, John Chetland. Um, he had shown me a piece that he had made, so I'd known that uh, this guy named Pat had just finished his glass blowing apprenticeship. So when I ran into him, I was like, "Hey, man, are you looking for an apprentice?" And he was like, "Yeah, sure, stop by." And we basically started off in a shed in his parents' backyard with a single torch until I could afford to buy my own torch. So I would do prep work for him, and then he would take the prep work and make things out of it, you know. So that was pretty cool. And eventually, along the way, we we just worked our butts off, and we got a few more apprentices who kind of helped encourage us to do better. And we worked really hard. Eventually, we're able to afford a glass lathe, which is kind of like, if you're a pipe maker, the thing that can differentiate you from being a small time glass blower to a large time production glass blower. You know, it's not that you can't make big, crazy things without a glass lathe, and a lot of the things that we've done have been without one, but they're one of the major stepping stones into having a large shop that's making big production pieces. After we got that, we ended up running into, the best way I could describe it, is a mad scientist, legitimately mad scientist. This guy's crazy, and like he like was actually trained in scientific glass blowing instead of just pipe making. So we learned a lot of techniques that allowed us to expand what we could make, you know. With glass blowing, you know, if you don't understand certain techniques, the chances of the piece breaking before you even get to the finished product is really high. So he taught us a lot of things that basically were allowed us to combine what our artistic view was with, you know, what glass is actually capable of doing. And through him, that's when we started really going off and started making really crazy things. I mean, our first trade show, he had made a legitimate laser gun, like had like a backpack strapped to it. It was water cooled. The laser gun was the laser itself was all glass and about maybe 3 feet long and had like 1,000-watt industrial laser on it,
Right.
Yeah, we started we learned how to make glass torches, so like a blowtorch made entirely out of glass. We learned how to do all sorts of crazy stuff, and after our first trade show we drew the interest of a glassblower who actually was in that movie, the Degenerate Art movie, and he invited us to come to his shop and work on a collaborative piece with him. So we ended up making a full-sized minigun, like,
Wow.
yeah. And that really kind of was like what brought us out into the wider glass market, as like, oh, we're not just some small-time glass blowers just doing this on the side and trying to make cool things. Like, no, we are legitimately making really cool, groundbreaking pieces of glass. And it was a really fun ride, but you can make a piece of glass that nice, but then you have to sell it. And that's kind of what started getting me a little bit less interested in the glass blowing over time, was, this idea that I could spend, maybe months working on a piece and then be trying to convince some guy with, a Supreme hat why this piece is worth the same as this other piece that's made by this guy who's just got a name and took him like literally 10 minutes to make. You know what I mean? So that kind of started getting me thinking that I was not loving this lifestyle anymore. At a certain point, the lifestyle just wasn't worth it. So I, decided that I wanted to. Well, the whole entire time I had been instructing, So on my weekends, I would instruct snowboarding or windsurfing and stuff like that. So I was like, why am I doing this thing that I am no longer liking when I have something that I do like in a place that I like doing it?
Yeah.
And especially since, like at this point in my relationship with Karyssa, I was kind of ready to, make her the main focus of my life. Not the main focus, but I wanted to put her higher on my priority list than my career at a certain point. And with the career of a glassblower, that's something that's not really possible,
Yeah.
So I decided to step back. I would like, for anybody listening, if you want to see some really cool glass, just check out Subliminal Glass on Instagram. My the guy I founded the shop with is still very active, and he's probably making the coolest pieces on market right now. So
They're pretty
Yeah.
sick.
Yeah, it was, and that was that in Vancouver where your shop was?
So our shop started in Vancouver, but the shop that we ended up doing most of our work in and spending the most time in was in Yakult.
Wow.
Which,
Okay.
if you
All
don't know
right.
where Yakult is, it's
Oh,
north of
yeah.
Vancouver. It's northeast of Vancouver. You basically just drive until you're in the middle of nowhere in the woods, and that's Yakult.
Mm-hmm.
Go past Battleground and you'll run into it at some point out on the highway.
Yeah,
I actually
yeah,
might get a full immersion of that entire area up on the Lewis River and go see Mount St. Helens from some of
Yeah.
the peaks and go up to Amboy and Yakult, and that whole area is super cool. Yeah, I love it
yeah.
up
Our
there.
glass shop was literally right off the Lewis River.
Yeah.
So like
Yeah,
when we
beautiful.
like on the summers when it'd be really hot, we literally just like run out of the shop and just sit in the dang river, because glass shops get hot.
Yeah, some of my early dating days with Chelsea, we loved going up to like Sunset Falls, Molten Falls, doing all those cool dips and jumping into the pools and stuff. Super fun. But
I
yeah,
think some of our first dates actually were out there too.
Yeah. Early in our
that's
relationship,
awesome.
we spent a lot of time up near Molten in the summers. It's
Yep,
a good spot. It's a really
it
pretty
is. It's so shaded and cool up there. Like, yeah, you just kind of get away from the heat of the city. The asphalt
Yeah.
paradise, as I call it.
Pretty much.
um, Yeah. And David, do you still? I remember you and Karyssa were living in Vancouver for quite some time. Do you still have your property in Vancouver?
Yeah, so I inherited a house when my dad passed away, and I've turned that into a rental property, and I still have that, I haven't raised the rent since I first got it. I don't know. It's
You're a good landlord.
well, I don't
He's
know.
he's a very considerate landlord. Like during
Yeah, very.
COVID, he and his mom gave each of their tenants money and like a break on rent. They're like, "Here's some money for groceries. Let us know if you're struggling. We just want
Wow.
you to be okay." And I've never heard of a landlord doing that before.
No.
I think David's a very good landlord, in my opinion.
Well, I mean, I think that being a landlord, especially in this time in history in America, can have really negative connotations. And a lot of landlords definitely deserve that. Like a lot of the ways that they raise rent and stuff like that, I find very predatory. And I don't necessarily find that necessary. Like I've found a way where like I can charge, you know, my tenants a reasonable rate. Like I don't need to make more money. You know what I mean? I'm making enough money to survive. And realistically, the thing that's important to me is that the house is being looked after and taken care of. I mean, one of my tenants is one of my friends from high school. So I've known him since like my junior year of high school. And he was one of my glass blowing shop mates forever. He was like our second apprentice. So like I don't necessarily, well, definitely because of that, I don't want to raise the rent. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But even more than that, with all my other tenants, I feel like I want to be able to provide a place that people can like live in, some place that they can feel like safe at home without feeling financially crippled.
Yeah, I
And I
feel like
don't know. After seeing this and like whatnot, it kind of frustrates me when I see like the prices that some of these people are charging for studios and things like that.
yeah, I feel like you guys are kind of kindred spirits with actually one of my best friends made friends with him first season up at Schweitzer when Chelsea and I moved up here. His name's
Hmm.
Sam, and he has some properties down in Moscow, Idaho, where he lives. And it's a lot of like it's University of Idaho's down there and Washington State across the border. But he has a lot of students and stuff like that, and he's always been the same way. He's like, I'm going to charge what's fair. I'm not going to overcharge people. I'm going to take care of them and make sure everything's like working and I fix things when things go out. So, definition of a good, fair landlord, definitely. All right, so we're back and we're going to start getting into some banter about good old Timberline Ski and Ride School. Um, our boss, and to this day, still director and been director for a long time, Steve Muse, big influence in all of our lives. I remember I told him the story that I remembered him from Mount Ashland in my interview during that job fair.
Hmm.
And he was there during when I was down there because that's where I grew up in Southern Oregon. And my
Okay.
home mountain was Mount Ashland growing up and stuff. But let's talk about how like you guys kind of got into ski school, like how you got hired, what happened, and yeah, and your let's go to your first interaction with the boss man, Steve Muse.
Okay. Shoot. That was my first interaction with Steve. I mean, well, I guess it. I mean, I can't really remember too much about my interview because it was so long ago. You know, like, but like I can definitely remember. Like my first impression of Steve, which was like, wow, this guy's like intense. You know what I mean? Not in a bad way. You know what I mean? But just like he seems like very like kind of runs a tight ship, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Like he seemed like serious in business at first when I first met him. And then like the first time I remember like going on a clinic with him, like I saw like, well, actually it wasn't even the clinic, it was during the ITC. You know what I mean? Like because he was like, like if you ever meet Steve, he's built like a fridge, you know what I mean? He's jacked like I've never seen anybody, you know what I mean? Bald head, you know, like like you can tell Steve's coming by because you can hear the, you know, the Slayer, you know, from like 100 yards away. So
Yeah.
like just paint a picture of this guy, you know?
Viking metal.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So it's like you kind of think you're going to expect a certain kind of thing when you see something like that, but Steve has this level of like he has a way of being empathetic and understanding, and that was one of the things that he really broke down in lessons, you know what I mean, is that you have to get down onto your students level, you know what I mean, you have to go back to what it's like not knowing this, when this thing, or when this green hill that you don't even think of and you can ride with your eyes closed is scary and looks like you're gonna fall off the edge of the dang world, you know. So I remember that about him a lot, you know what I mean? And I remember watching him ride for the first time and how beautiful his carves look. Like he looks like a machine when he's riding, you know. Everything is perfect, everything is technical, you know, like if you were to like look at the lines that he's making in the snow, they're never a skidded turn. They're always carved with, you know, like it's always a very sharp line through the snow wherever he's gone. And I learned, and I feel like he was very good at articulating, you know, what, not necessarily just like the technique, but the ways to think about reaching that technique. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Karyssa, how about you?
Um, well, I think Dave kind of like summed up a good like visual first impression of Steve, you know, built
Yeah.
like a fridge, intimidating, a little intense. And I think it was that empathy and that sort of like just genuine interest Steve has in sharing the love and passion of snowboarding, like for the sport. I That was all I saw when he handed me my first snowboard, and I didn't know this guy. He was my boyfriend's boss, and I was just a real small girl being like, I want to learn how to snowboard. And he's like, cool, let's get you learning how to snowboard. And I was like, really? You think I can do it? And I think it's just his passion for wanting to see people succeed and wanting to help them in their learning path and whatever it is they're trying to do that really sold me on not only this sport, but that I could be an instructor. And, you know, even though I didn't feel confident in my skills, you know, Steve was like, that's chill. We will get your skills where you want them to be and where we want them to be. You know, it'll take time and effort, but we can get you there. And the ski school just felt really welcoming and inviting, and I really liked the community it had. I've made a lot of friends through the ski school. You're one of them. And you know, even years later, like I'm still keeping in touch with these people, and it feels really special. And I just really like the atmosphere. I don't instruct anymore. I haven't instructed snowboarding in a couple seasons, like regularly. I kind of had to take a break a few, or like kind of scale it back a couple of years ago when I got diagnosed with endometriosis and I had a diagnostic surgery and was just having like constant health issues that made physically teaching snowboarding um, not impossible for me, but I couldn't consistently be on a schedule. Sometimes certain movements would cause a flare up or cause like a cyst to burst, and I didn't want that happening in a lesson because like it's crippling when that happens. Like I can't walk most of the time, and I was so for a while I was like, how can I like instruct or be a teacher for my student or like physically assist them when like I physically am struggling to move and like operate my body. So that was when I officially sort of took a step back from instructing, was in 2021. And I'm not sure if I'll ever be instructing snowboarding to that same degree that I was before. But I do feel that through teaching windsurfing at Big Ones, that reignited my passion for teaching and sort of made me realize, no, this is a thing I still love. It doesn't have to be just in this one sport, but I do love helping my students learn how to navigate these things and learn these new sports. And I really like being an instructor. It doesn't matter what sport it is to me. So I'm really glad that I was able to have that experience teaching at Big Ones with David, because I feel like it really sort of like reopened my eyes to a part of my heart that I think I'd kind of like closed a door on for a little while, if that makes sense, you know.
Okay. Yeah, I hear you. Yeah. I feel the same way. I think that sometimes we can get, burned out as instructors. Um, and it's always nice to, still be at
I
the
think
mountain and take that time to just get back to what you love to do, which is ride and stuff. And so, um, there's nothing like Timberline. There's nothing like Timberline Ski School. If you're an instructor, just Steve and everyone there. I still am in constant contact with Mike Jennings. Mike's planning a trip up this way, hopefully this season. It'd be great to see him again, and all the homies back, whether it be Cameron or Julian, of course. All those guys, just so awesome, and especially you guys too. Whenever I was coming back down, because I was so hard headed when I moved up here to North Idaho, I was like, I have to go back to Timberline and get my days in. And I was working up here at Schweitzer too, and it's just not the same. And so I don't regret like taking those drives at 1, 2 in the morning and getting there for lineup. And then you guys are awesome, and you're like, you can stay with us. And the other homies, Tristan was very nice when him and Julian were in the RV together, letting me stay with them too. And just like people are so you make lifelong friendships at that place, which is so awesome. Let's talk
yeah, I don't
about. Oh, go ahead, David.
yeah, I don't know if like, you know, Mount Hood is the only one of these, but Government Camp and Mount Hood in specific have this very small ski town vibe going, you know. I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about that with the Govy stuff, but like the vibe of Mount Hood is definitely this small, close knit community, which I think is very special.
Yeah, yeah, and I've had interviews and just chatted with other writers all over, really, from the East Coast, from Southern California, from Tahoe, and when they come to Hood, they just it's just different.
Hmm.
Whether it be, going down to the Scalar, going to Charlie's, or, living at the Skummets for a certain amount of time, partying at the Skummets, doing all those things, getting rowdy, taking a rip with Cameron on his golf cart, like whatever
Yeah.
it is, like everyone's just always like, oh, you're here, like you're in town. Let's go have fun. Like
Hmm.
we'll go work, we'll go ride, do whatever we got to do. Then we're having fun at night, and
Hmm.
whatever that may be, it was cool. Like the only time I've done like virtual reality with the things on my face and stuff was the last time I visited you guys at the
Yeah,
summits.
that's right.
David was stoking on that. He's like, I just got this new video game. And it was like, I was like, oh, this is a good time, man. That was definitely a good time. I want to get into some of your favorites. So we'll do a little bit of rapid fire, just Hood version real quick. Okay.
Hmm.
Rathskeller or Charlie's?
Rat.
Yeah, the rat.
Nice. Favorite run at Timberline?
Lower bone zone or waterfall. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Ooh. I don't know if I have a favorite. Probably maybe Bone Zone or Magic Mile, just because on Magic Mile I can get the biggest carves because nowhere else the runs are big enough. And that's something I feel like Steve definitely made me appreciate is the beauty and finesse of a really good carve. I love
Right.
it. It's really simple. I feel not much to it once you kind of like get the technique and like the finesse of the motions down, but it's just so much fun and I love how far like you can go in one direction on mine.
Yep.
I honestly wish it was wider.
Yeah. Yeah. That's ingrained in my head too. Like, whenever it's a day that carving is happening, it's like I'm always like, okay, I'm gonna like try and carve like Steve told me to. And I'm always
Mm.
like, I'll take like a handful of turns and look back up at the groomer and make sure that it's an actual carve and not a skidded
Mm.
turn.
Hmm.
He's
Yeah.
like, why would I ever do anything besides carve? Skidding is dumb.
Yeah.
um, yeah, and then let's go with like, what's been like the craziest night that you guys have ever had in Govy?
Good or bad?
Yeah.
Good night. Good
Positive
night.
note or
We don't.
negative?
Yeah.
There's enough of the bad nights. What's like the
Yeah.
best night you've
Okay.
had out
Well,
there?
let's see.
Craziest night.
I mean, I bet there's a lot of them. If you've ever spent a good amount of time up in Hood, like there's always a good time most nights.
You know, I think for me personally, this was a time when Dave and I weren't together, but it was a season when he was doing like 2 months of trade shows, like back to back glass blowing, and I was just instructing myself, living in my Forerunner by myself. Chose a
Okay.
different parking spot every night. I think there was just like a couple nights where I just got fucking sloshed and just like was stumbling around Govy, just a normal Govy person. That's not really like my normal MO, but for me it was kind of like, wow, I'm just doing this by myself and not giving a single fuck. Okay. But it
Yeah.
was good. I was just hanging out with Julian and Tristan. We went to the bars and then they went their way, and I just kind of stumbled my way back to my car. And I ran into Cameron actually, and we didn't like know each other super well at the time, but he was friends with Dave, and he just offered me like a spot to sleep in his apartment. And I befriended his roommate's dog, and it was just kind of wild. I was like, wow, I don't know you people, but here I am sleeping in your apartment, befriending your dog. And it was kind of like that similar welcoming environment, and it was just really fun. I don't know. It was kind of
Nice.
I mean, I can't really think of like there was a whole bunch of crazy parties at the Birdhouse, which was like it was like employee housing, but it was like kind of like for people who had been there a little bit longer, and it was supposed to be nicer. It was this like 3-story house that was kind of like it was kind of weirdly shaped, kind of shaped like
a birdhouse.
a birdhouse. So that's why it was called that. But like, I mean, every night was just the craziest freaking rager until they literally kicked all the employees out of there and turned it into and sold it. As far as just like one night that I can really think of off the top of my head, that like stood out as like something that I found hilarious was there's one night I was car camping at Timberline, because back in the day they were pretty chill with employees, like sleeping in the parking lot as long as you were kind of hush hush about it. Not so much these days, but like when there's snow in the parking lot, people like to go drifting around there. And some people can drift, some people can't. You get used to it. There was this one kid, and he could not drift. And I just remember hearing like this terrible like thud. And I looked out in his car, like he hadn't hit anything, but then he's just revving his engine. Nothing happened. Just blew out his transmission on the top of Timberline, which would have been funny by itself. But then it got better in the fact that he got out of his car, was like, oh shit, man, what the fuck, and all his friends were laughing at him. He didn't take kindly to that, so he decked his friends, which were his only ride off the mountain. They left him up there, and he ended up having to walk his happy ass up to Timberline and getting a room.
This was like 1 o'clock in the morning in the middle of winter.
Oh my gosh, that's
Yeah.
crazy.
You want to be left solo with a
No.
So yeah,
Definitely.
that's one.
That was pretty good.
Yeah, that was a pretty good one.
It's a good one.
Yeah.
Bowl, Meadows, or T-line?
So, Meadows will always have a special place in my heart. It's where I learned how to snowboard.
Yeah.
But as far as the people that the people in the crowds, it's probably the place I'd like to be in the least. Ski bowls, chairlifts suck, but on a powder day, there's no place I'd rather be than ski. Like the powder or their backcountry runs, like they have the steepest, most intense terrain on Mount Hood.
Yeah.
And Timberline is obviously home for me, It doesn't have the most intense terrain or anything like that, but it's special in the fact that like there's a lot of hidden gems if you know where to look, where to find them. And since there's a lot of people who don't know where those hidden gems are, you can usually find powder, and there's almost always a chairlift that doesn't have a line on it. And that's what I really care about, It doesn't really matter how nice your resort is if you only get 2 runs in a whole day,
Yeah. I always take offense when people call it flat line. I'm like, yes, it's flat, but that's just because you don't know where to go.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah,
How
for
about you,
me,
Karyssa? Same kind
mm,
of deal. All of them
well,
have their own
yeah, they all have their
perks.
own like pluses and minuses. I don't quite have the same like fondness for meadows as Dave does. I think that's the resort I've ridden at the least on Mount Hood. I have been there
Mhm.
several times, but it's not a place where I feel like I have like tree runs or like certain spots mapped in my head at all. Ski bowl, I really love the ski bowl terrain. Timberline's really fun. It doesn't I don't really mind that it's super flat, but yeah, I think I just kind of have like areas of each resort I like riding at. My very first time riding at Ski Bowl actually involved the chairlifts, and this I do not recommend. But at this point, I had taken like a half tab or a tab of acid, and we were like, "Yeah, it's New Year's. We're gonna go snowboard at Ski Bowl, right? Sounds fun." I had never been on their chairlifts before. It's literally just like a chair with a rail and like two tiny handbars, no lap bar, nothing. Terrifying when you're coming up on acid.
Japan vibes.
That was not a good time. But I survived it, and it ended up being a pretty cool night. But yeah, would not recommend that your first time on a brand new
Hmm.
chairlift.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, and it just whenever I go back to the bowl, me just being maybe would have had like maybe a couple beers or so, but even that, I'm like on those chairs and I'm just like, ah,
Even the upper bowl, man, because there's
yeah,
sometimes, like if like there's just a straight cliff underneath you,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
yeah,
it's just this tiny little chair, and it's probably like blowing like like close enough where you can touch the pole, the lift pole because of how windy it gets up there sometimes.
right, yeah. Yeah, but it is just like you said, if there's powder and the lights are on at night, like you get up there when they open at 3 o'clock. And man, I remember my favorite days were either working on a powder day at Timberline or just riding a powder day at Timberline. And then immediately once you got off, you go down to the bowl
Hmm.
Yeah,
and like maybe hit Rathskeller for a little bite to eat and a beer before you go to the bowl. And then you
yeah.
just hit that all night. And it's like 12 hours of just
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah.
Well, and with the Govy 500, like you might as well, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
if people don't know what the Govy 500 is, by the way,
Oh,
basically
Instagram page. Let's go.
on the weekends when everybody starts coming off the hill, like what would normally be a 1 hour drive can turn into a 5 or 6 hour drive sometimes. You
Yep.
know,
If
on
there's
the
a bad accident, they'll shut down the road and you
so
have to reroute up to Hood River to Troutdale, down through Portland, and then get where you're going.
yeah, so
I've had a
um
few of those.
yeah, so because of that, like I feel like a lot of the people who regularly are making that commute end up just going to ski bowl anyways because it's like you could leave, sit in traffic, and be there at one time, or you could go to ski bowl, ride for like 3 hours, and get home 15 minutes later.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, definitely. Man, that's so true. Yeah. And I was gonna had one more question for you guys about Hood. Oh, favorite season at Hood. Fall, winter, spring, summer. It's hard. I mean,
Okay,
yeah, it's
so
hard to pick.
it's hard because I feel like we've come to enjoy both the sunny side and the dark side of Mount Hood. If you're not familiar with those terms, the sunny side is the north side of Mount Hood, so like where Hood River and the gorge is. And then the dark side of Mount Hood is where Timberline, Govy, Welch's is. It's in the rain shadow. That's why it's
Yeah.
called the dark side. In the winters, we are definitely more on the dark side of the mountain. I think I love spring the most up here. I love the spring riding. I love how some days it's stormy, how some days it's sunny. The snow is really soft and playful. We still get good storms. The mountain's starting to come awake for the summertime. It's just so beautiful. Like it's the freshest place in the world for me to be. And then in the summer and fall, I think I like the sunny side of Mount Hood just because I really like the warm, hot air that kind of comes through the gorge. And I love the atmosphere. I love the smell and look of the high desert from the gorge. And it's really crazy that one mountain can have such varied scenery and like topography, just circumnavigating like one mountain. It's really impressive. It feels like two completely different places sometimes. So I
For
think I
sure.
would say spring or summer.
Yeah, I would have to agree. Like, I would say Mount Hood, like, if you were like planning on coming up and riding and you wanted to choose when, like really early spring is probably when we get our best snow, you know? Like I said, I've been riding here for like 24 years, and you know, condition like the trend in weather patterns I've noticed has changed as I've gotten older. And what I've been noticing is of late, like usually December, which would be when a lot of resorts are expecting snow, we usually get a weird warm spell. Like last week, it was, you know, raining inches up on Mount Hood, you know, which really sucked. But you know, come around February, like, you know, not, and sometimes January is not even very good for us, but like February and March, we can get like, you know, dumps that are so big that we can't even open the resorts, you know. So I
Sure.
think that's probably when I probably enjoy riding the most, you know. It's that early spring season.
Excellent. Yeah, I love that. Yes, I would have to agree. I love that. I always say my favorite time is when the flow park opens. It's always
Yeah,
been my
dude.
favorite.
Oh my
Yeah,
God. I
yeah,
forgot about the flow park.
yeah. It's the best. Definitely, definitely. You know, and I've experienced the summers up there too, and you know, Karyssa, you did as well. You know, coordinating all those camps and stuff. What was kind of your experience with that? You know, you working with camps like High Cascade and all the different groups and everything?
I
Um,
was working with every camp. Funny enough, Mike Jennings, who used to be a trainer for the Timberline Ski School, he later on became the trainer for, I believe, the Paralympic team
right. Yeah.
for snowboarding. And he was one of the coaches. So I actually got to see him on like a regular basis through a couple of the summers, the weeks that he was up there training. And it was really cool to see some like coaches or like my trainer kind of move on to other roles within the industry and start putting their skills to use in a lot higher stake like competitors basically. um, Overall it was really cool. I never knew ski racing was an industry at all until I got the job.
Okay.
I don't think that's normal for most people, but it was primarily an administrator role. I was a counselor for ski camps for one summer with the Timberline Ski School itself. It was really cool to see how big this whole like summer training thing on Mount Hood is. I had never realized the scope of it. You know, it is a multi-million-dollar program that goes on with all the camps coming through. Like we have international Olympic teams, we have teams from New Zealand, we have teams from Europe. You know, we have local teams from Hood River that just do local competitions in the winter for school kids, all the way up to like, you know, Kaylee Neal, like you know, the levels that she's competing at, those competitors come here to train in the summertime.
Yep.
And sometimes with when the FTC, the Freestyle Training Center opens, like you'll see ski and snowboard celebrities come through, and half of them I didn't even know who they
Yeah,
were.
didn't you next line Sean White?
Yeah. So Shaun White showed up one day, and I had a sign above my window, and people don't read signs. You know, they just don't read signs.
Yeah.
And I was really busy, and he stood in my line asking for a general lift ticket, and I was like, "Buddy, next window. I'm not the one that sells tickets. I'm busy." And he was wearing like a full face helmet. I didn't know who he was. I was just like, "Bruh, you gotta get to my side." I didn't realize that was Shaun White, and I felt really bad because later on I heard he had set his snowboard next to some mountain bikes, and then the rental shop manager chewed him out too. So I don't think he had a very good
Oh, Sean.
time. And I feel bad, but he was also incognito, so he got treated like just a regular person. So sorry,
Yeah, you
bud.
can't. I mean, you can't fault you for that. Like, if he does that, you know, he like likes wearing his mask so that people like may not know who he is sometimes, and it's understandable. Like, he doesn't want to
Yeah,
get
I
mobbed
really
right away. He gets mobbed enough during the day up at the
Yeah, no,
the camp
we
and stuff.
understand it. I just thought that was funny.
I
It's
felt
like,
I
really
think
bad.
it's like
sir,
Carissa,
you're
big
gonna have to go to the next line.
Sorry.
Straight
you,
DMV.
you random guy.
But
That's awesome.
But another celebrity that I didn't know was a celebrity, I just liked his board, was Zeb Powell. I was a
Yes.
liftee at the Magic Mile the summer of COVID, and I just saw his board. He was usually wearing like pink of some sort, and I was like, "Hey, I really like your style. That's a sick board."
Was
And
it
then
the
like,
really, really big, like,
oh yeah,
swallowtail? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's what he's
yeah,
known for.
dude.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And then like, I don't know, a few weeks later, I saw him on Instagram and I was like, wait a second, I've been talking to that guy every day at the lifts and he's super nice, super chill. So that's kind of cool. Just like not realizing I'm talking to like these big public figures and they just kind of talk to me like a normal human being. I kind of talk to them like a normal human being. I don't feel a lot of pretension there with like the people training or competing. There was a little pretentiousness with some coaches from certain groups, but I feel
Sure.
like that can be expected in any industry. That's not really different.
Yeah.
Overall, it was a good experience. I feel like I learned a lot and learned a lot about how Timberline operates, kind of like on a grander scope outside of like just how one department functions, but how this department is operating this thing that actually funds a big portion of Timberline's year. That was a big
Right.
responsibility.
Yeah, and that's I'd like, I really liked hearing what you just said about how everyone kind of was chill, you know. I
Hmm.
think a lot, no matter what level you're at, how big you are, from Sean White all the way down to a kid coming out to camp for the first time, everyone is either learning what it's like to be at Hood or knows what Hood is, and it's kind of a place for like snowboarders to get away for a little bit and just like go get back to like the spirit of the sport and the lifestyle and come to Hood, because that's where you have to go if you're going to become like a big time professional. Like
Yeah.
you have to be at Hood in the summer training and doing the things and creating connections. So for everyone to embody like the spirit of Hood, like I remember listening to Sean's Bombhole, and he spoke on how special Hood is, and that's why he's come back to High Cascade and doing his week and stuff. And you go from him to Sage Kotzenberg to Lucas Foster to all these guys, all the way down to the locals. It's awesome. One thing everyone does agree is snowboarders can't stand the ski racers during the summer. Can't do it.
No.
Like,
Yeah.
just
No.
like,
Hate to
just
admit it,
like,
but it's true.
yeah, it's funny, but
Yeah.
it is what it is. It's always been a thing up there. But
Yep.
dude, let's so we're gonna hit off with some rapid fire questions, some general rapid fire questions for you guys before we close things out. Okay, and
Hmm.
David, I'll start with you. So we'll go David, Karyssa, back and forth. So pants or bibs?
Bibs.
Pants. I was supposed
Goggles,
to go first.
goggles or glasses?
Goggles.
Goggles.
Okay, pow or slush?
Pow.
Pow.
Pow. Um, so bucket list item. You have one heli powder trip you want to go on, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a heli, but everyone loves to get into the heli. Where's the place that you're going to go that you haven't been yet, and who's going to be in the heli with you if you had to pick one person?
Well, probably. I've heard Japan's pretty good. Like I said, I haven't been anywhere else, so I don't know where's cool. I mean, I heard the Alps are cool, so like the Alps, Japan sounds really cool,
Japan.
and I'd definitely be going with her. You know.
Hell yeah.
The first place that came to mind for me was actually Japan as well. I've never snowboarded there. I lived there for a semester in high school. I participated in a study abroad program, but I was in the south in the tropics. I had wanted to be in the north to live in the snow because like Beaverton doesn't really get snow. So I'd probably have to say northern Japan because that's been a bucket list item since I was 15. So yeah,
Maybe
and
we can
David,
make that happen. Maybe we can get together on that, because I have two places, Japan and Baldface Lodge up in Nelson, British Columbia. Those are
Okay.
the two that I would love to go to, but
heck
Japan is
yeah,
probably first right now. But yeah, we should take a trip at some point. The
Yeah,
we
dude.
culture
should.
and
That would be
everything, and the food. I hear the food is just amazing. So yeah.
It is. I gained weight while I was there. Did not care. The food is
No,
amazing.
man, it'd be so awesome. Yeah, definitely. Okay. And I wanted to chat with you guys a little bit about what's coming up next for you guys. You both have your jobs up at Timberline. What's kind of like your plans and the near future, whether just in life and in snowboarding?
Well, as far as just Timberline and my career go, my plan is to. I really want to stick with Timberline as long as I can. You know, I think Timberline is a company that actually cares about its employees, and while it has room to grow, is actively trying to do things that help its employees. Like re- like recently they provided fully paid covered health insurance, which was a
Excellent.
huge stepping stone for us. So what I would like to do is I would like to continue moving forward in the company and getting to maybe eventually be in a position where I can see some of the positive changes that Timberline needs to take to continue growing and be the one helping make those moves. So I guess that's kind of more long term. Short term, like I just really want to ride a lot more. I feel like these last 2 seasons, especially like with the whole trucking school and whatnot, like kept me away from the hill. And, like instead of riding like every day, for an entire season, I only got like 4 days on hill, last season. So I just want to ride a lot, this season. I finally got gear that, works for me. So my main goal is just ride and maybe start like working on progressing towards places I haven't really gone towards snowboarding, like a little bit more like freestyle. I've never landed a five yet, 103, but never a five. So maybe this will be the year for fives, you
There we
know?
go.
Yeah.
For me, in my personal life, I think just maintaining stability is my goal. Like we've mentioned, the last few years have been really all over the place and really unstable, starting from like our living experience in the Scummets, through trekking school, through being frauded, through trying to like get back on our feet after that. So just kind of gaining stability, being able to relax and not stress about little daily things quite as much is my main goal. As far as snowboarding, it's been a couple seasons since I've regularly been riding. Um, and so for me, my goal to start is just to kind of work on building my confidence back. I realized the first couple times I went out this season that my confidence dropped a lot. And like muscular, like I can rebuild up the muscular skills pretty easy, but it's like the mental the mental skills is where I'm struggling right now. So I really want to work through that this season and reach a point where I'm not feeling fear when going out or attempting something I know I've accomplished before. Even if I don't execute it perfectly, that's okay. I just don't want to mentally prohibit myself from trying to like try something. So those are some roadblocks I'm working through right now. And yeah, that's my goal for the season.
Nice. Yeah, it's definitely rough the first few trips out. You're just kind of getting like, and as instructors and former instructors, we're always kind of like in our heads, in our
Mm-hmm.
writing, like, why am I not able to like play this turn down? Like, what's going on? But
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
if you just like kind of slow down and just like rethink your body movements and stuff, that's what I did the other day. And I was like, okay, I'm back to carbon now. There we go.
Right.
But yeah, and you guys speaking, David, you mentioned like you have your full gear setup. Let's talk setups. What's the board setup looking like right now, David?
Well, right now I'm riding a War Pig with I think 11-year-old Union force bindings on
There we
them.
go. Yeah,
Yeah,
they
Yeah,
last.
yeah,
they do.
yeah. If you needed a recommendation for bindings that last, yeah, Union forces last forever. I don't think I've even replaced a single thing on them.
No, they're all OG.
That's the only binding I ride now.
Yeah. I recently just got some. What are my boots? What brand are they?
I don't remember.
What brand are your boots?
K2?
No, the new boots that you just got. They're not K2. They're
Nitro?
Nitro.
There you
Nitro.
go.
So I just got Nitro boots, and I'm really enjoying them. Like I feel like not so much on the snowboarding side, but still kind of on the snowboarding side. Like most boots are kind of made for somebody with a narrow foot, and I got a really wide foot, so the Nitro boots have a much wider toe base, and that's been helping me out
Nice.
substantially. And as far as ski gear goes, because I do both, I'm riding my old Honey Badger skis and some Solomon boots. That doesn't matter. They're
Yeah,
ski.
there you go.
It's skier
Yep,
stuff.
there we go.
What are you ready?
I'm writing a happy place.
Okay.
What brand bindings do we have on it? think they're like fixed. Or something.
Yeah, I think they're fixed bindings. They're
There we
right.
go.
All
Solid.
right. Sometimes
Yeah.
the like high back will like pop out of the cup, and I'll have to kind of like
Okay.
pop it back in, but it stays in while I'm strapped in. That's what's important. So
Yeah.
Yeah, and as far as like future wise, well, like right now I'm looking at this like wrapped up package of a silhouette of a snowboard. So I don't know what it is. I'm
Oh,
pretty sure it's a paddle board, but like, you know,
it might have a swallowtail. I don't know.
or
okay.
I think it's called a fishtail. Like I was talking to Daniel about that. Swallowtails go like that.
Oh.
Fishtails are just kind of like that, right?
Oh, okay. I hear
Yeah.
you.
I
Yeah.
don't know, man. I just read the dang things.
Yeah, I've heard there's this company out there called Karyssa Shapes, and they basically are all POW boards. I have a company up here that swears by them. I've never ridden one, but they look pretty cool.
Yeah, I've never actually had a POW board. I've just had, like big boards, Like
Yeah.
when I was a kid, I would be riding like 164s and stuff like that, 162s. And I'm not a tall guy. I'm like 5'9". And I was shorter then. So that was like my version of a POW board. So I'm really excited to see what this is going to be like,
There you go. Shouts out to Karyssa. Yeah. Well, cool guys. Yeah, I just want to say, thank you for your time. It was great seeing you guys, getting to chat. I'd love, hopefully soon we can plan a trip for you guys up here and vice versa. Hopefully I can get down there, whether it be in the summer, maybe we can go hit some fly fishing.
Dude, for real.
Yeah. Last year was crazy for us, but I would really love to do a fishing trip together.
Yeah. Now I got a little drift boat that can all of us can go out on. So yeah, got a little drift boat we can fish from, and you guys know, doing the guiding thing up here, and like you guys love to teach windsurfing and all that stuff in Hood River. Like I feel like sometimes like I miss in the winters guiding and fly fishing more than I miss snowboarding during the summer. So it's kind of funny.
I get that, because like the thing that I feel like instructing helps provide, and like what we get out of it as instructors is like sometimes like we know that we just made a lifelong memory for somebody, and getting to be a part of that is something that I find is really special. I'm sure you feel that same way, Dylan.
Definitely.
And like I'm sure raising your kid is kind of something like that too. Like you're actually getting to be kind of on the receiving end, where like like I'm sure there's probably been a time or two where you've got to watch somebody help your kid have a lifelong memory that they're going to treasure forever. You know what I mean? And there's something just really special about that. And I feel like that's what Mount Hood and Timberline in specific are really good at providing, is just, a place that's going to provide you a memory that you're going to be able to take with you to your grave.
She was a little badass. She actually got like altitude sickness for a little bit and threw up. And I was like, "Are you okay, Quinn?" She was like, "Yeah, I want to go ride more now." So yeah, she was awesome. But yeah, guys, well, thank you again for your time. Thanks for joining the podcast. I'm super stoked on it. Yeah, no doubt. And thanks to the venue here at Fine Brewed in downtown Coeur d'Alene for letting me record. And yeah, thanks again, guys. Appreciate it.
All righty.
Cool. We'll have a